Hi, this is Sally Morgan, physical therapist, craniosacral therapist, and Tellington T-Touch practitioner for animals and people. This is Tristan. He's a Corgi, and this is an episode of Conversations with a Corgi. 400 of them now, I can't even believe it. Anyway, today we're going to continue our discussion about hospice care and end-of-life issues, and we're looking at different modalities that you might find helpful if you are working with a pet who is near the end of his life or who is in hospice care. And of course, many of these things apply to humans as well. So if you know a person in this situation, you can also perhaps be helpful to them. So today we're going to look at shamanic work and how that relates to end-of-life issues. And if my friend Wendy joins us, she is a shaman for animals who operates out of North Carolina. And what is shamanic work? Do people even know what that is? What shamanism refers to is an ancient mode of spiritual healing that is present in all cultures of the world. And shamanic practitioners work in the realm of spirits. They don't call themselves shamans, but you earn that title from a respected community around you who recognizes your skills as a healer, and then you become a shaman. Shamans, as I said, work in the spirit and the soul world. So that's an important thing when you are crossing the Rainbow Bridge. So being able to connect with spirit can be very important. And what a shaman would do, like I go to a shaman fairly frequently, they heal illness at the soul level. So if, for instance, you are working in a situation like a war zone or in an area where there's just a lot of bad energy. Like I used to work with a lot of really negative people, and our unit was right by the morgue. And so I had all these things attaching to my outer body layers, my auric layers, and I needed to get those pulled off by going to a shaman. So that's healing at the spiritual, like spirit, soul level. And when a shaman is working, they allow a piece of their soul to leave the body and connect with the spirit realm and give us information that can help us with our own spiritual growth. So, in fact, asking a shaman to help during the hospice process can be very useful. They, like I said, move into that spirit realm, that altered state of consciousness. They do that often by chanting or drumming or both. I have worked with shamans with a South American tradition, with an indigenous peoples tradition from Canada, with Native American shamans, a Cherokee particular tradition that I have worked with quite a bit. And it is interesting to be there for part of that drumming or chanting or singing or dancing because it also shifts you. It's like in yoga when we chant a mantra over and over to achieve a meditative state. That is basically what the shamanic healer will be doing. And I find that having been witness or participating in these sessions, that I also get into that altered state. And shamans believe that all problems, physical, emotional, or mental, have their root cause in a spiritual imbalance. And in my work as a craniosacral practitioner, I can see that this is often the case. I have worked with people, for instance, who had a number of, what is the word for it, growths in their uterus that were actually representing the number of children she wanted to have, which was in conflict with the number of children her husband wanted to have. And these growths were causing her all kinds of problems, and her doctors were saying that she needed a hysterectomy to rid herself of the pain. But during this craniosacral session, which was a group session, there were like 4 of us, 5 of us maybe working with her, she came to terms that she could nurture and love those unborn children, and some of them were even miscarriages, in a way that did not require her to carry these cysts in her uterus anymore in her life, giving her more and more trouble. And she was scheduled for surgery in like a week. Well, that was a Saturday. Sunday, she came in and she had been kind of sick all night on this like deep spiritual journey, releasing those fibroid cysts and just having a huge cleansing in her body. She looked like she had lost 20 pounds when she came in the next day, and she looked tired but really refreshed. So that's the kind of spiritual journey. I mean, that's kind of literally physical, but that spiritual and mental and emotional unrest she felt with that unresolved idea of feeling the need to have this many children and her husband saying, no, we're having this many. That all resolved during that session. And so that's a more literal example of the way that things in the spiritual or emotional realm can work their way into your body and you don't even know it. You know, plenty of women have fibroids, tumors, and have no idea why or how they got there. But in this woman's experience, this is what was the root of her problem. So as I said, I used to work in a place near the morgue, and I had a lot of really negative coworkers and a lot of anger around me on a daily basis. So I had this kind of dark energy constantly attaching to me, and I could clear off a lot of it, but I really needed to go in for a quote tune-up to have a shaman relieve those stresses from my outer auric layers so that I would be able to function and not lose my own vibrancy or get sick. So that's what people do when they go to a shaman. And shamanic work encompasses the idea that shamans are intermediaries and messengers between the human world and the spirit world, or the earth plane and the spirit world. And they have been, you know, like John of God. Some people think he's a shaman, and he heals things, you know, from the soul level in. And so all kinds of amazing healings have occurred under his care. And, you know, I've seen videos of him working. I mean, he's in a very deep spiritual place when he's working. And once the traumas on the outer layers of the body, in the soul and in the spirit, are relieved, then the physical body can regain its wellness, its wholeness, its balance, its state of homeostasis, if you will. And so how does shamanic work then figure into hospice care? Well, sometimes when someone, like when I was working at the Veterans Hospital near here, we would have people on hospice care for a few weeks, and then they'd rally and get better and move out of hospice care, and then they'd go back 3 years later. So these kinds of things happen with our pets too. I know Bernie, when I interviewed him yesterday, told a story of his pet, one of his pets being almost on death's door, and then with some different kinds of care, the pet rallied and lived for 3 more years. So, and I've seen this with my dog Comet. He looked like he wasn't going to make it another hour. And then 3 months later was when he finally went, after he kind of rebounded. So I think that spirits are kind of transitioning up and down, in and out of this world and the next world, on their process of going across the Rainbow Bridge. So having a shaman work with you at this point, you know, there's that idea of wanting to go with peace, with no unresolved issues, with no unattended business on this side of the bridge, to make sure that you have a peaceful transition. So a shaman can do a couple of different things to help with that transition. They can release any darkness that's around the spiritual body of the animal that they're working with. And they do that again by journeying. They can also do a journey to connect that animal with the spirits that he might know or encounter across the bridge, and work with those beings across the bridge to welcome the new animal so that he is, you know, ready to go and not so afraid. And I don't know that necessarily, having had a near-death experience and worked and talked to plenty of other people that have, that fear is a big part of it. But I think for you as the pet owner, there's a fear that your animal may suffer or experience loss. But having the confidence from a shaman working with your pet that he will find other pets on the other side that he recognizes and knows can sometimes ease that transition across the bridge. And sometimes I'll do that even with the roadkill that I see. I will make a connection between, you know, a particular animal of that species that I've known, who I don't necessarily know his name or anything, but he used to be the squirrel that I saw every morning for a number of years. And I'll ask him to help with this squirrel that's smashed in the road to find his way safely across the bridge and find his buddies over there. So shamans can do that kind of journeying as well. And then they can also pick up lost pieces. A lot of what shamans do is what we call a soul retrieval. And, you know, when you have a traumatic event in your life, like let's say you were a premature baby and you almost died, and, you know, you had to live on a vent, et cetera, when you were very young. at that point, there could be a piece of your soul that leaves your body because of the trauma of the instance. And we can see this in rescued dogs and horses, that there's been really like life-threatening near-death experiences in their lives that can cause, or just like a sense of hopelessness and depression in their lives that can cause a piece of their soul to be not attached to the rest of their being. And so a shamanic journey can bring those pieces back together so that your pet is whole spiritually before he crosses the rainbow bridge. Now, we don't do this for every pet that dies. Probably very few pets get this opportunity, but I can tell you that it is a very enriching, incredible experience for you as a pet lover and a pet owner to participate or witness this process with a pet crossing the rainbow bridge. My friend Tracy out in Colorado is trained in shamanic work, and I had the great privilege of working with her with my horse buddy when he was passing, which I wrote about in my book, which is right there, Dances of the Heart. And, you know, we did a couple of journeys for him. We did one journey when we were calling, we were healing him, really, his spirit, from what he had seen at the racetrack and what he had endured at the racetrack as a young horse, 28 years before he was dying. And then we also did a journey for him specifically to call in what we call the ancestral herd, and you can call in the ancestral pack or the pride, whatever kind of animal you have, and ask those horses that you've known on the other side to come and greet this horse that may be in the process of crossing the rainbow bridge. And what was so profound in that experience with that particular horse is that he whinnied and sniffed and pawed with each new horse we introduced, as if he really was literally greeting a new horse in the pasture. And so that gave a lot of validity to what we were doing, and it was incredibly moving. And I could see the tension in his body easing as he was feeling more and more comfortable with being between those two worlds, our world and the spirit world where he is now. And so I found that to be particularly profound and useful. And I also had my vet friend, who is a shaman, work with Comet during his process of dying. He worked with him a little bit 2 months before he crossed, and that may be why he rallied and went on for another 2 months. And then after he crossed the Rainbow Bridge, he did a distant journey with him, even though he was local. He was also busy and committed to different activities and responsibilities, and so he couldn't just drop everything and come over to my house and drum for an hour with my dog, but he took time out of his life and did that for Comet where he was. And I could see and feel a shift in just sort of the peacefulness and the connection of Comet going to the other world. So that is, shamanic work can be very helpful for hospice, for humans and animals. And like I said, there are shamans all across the country, but it might be hard for you to find one unless you start Googling. Thank God for the internet. You might find one near you. After, I think it was when Tracy was still in her shamanic training, she said that I should probably find someone doing her kind of work in my area. And I Googled it, and there was a woman like literally 10 miles away. Now she has moved. I don't know where she is, but I can probably find her. And I'm very fortunate to live in a very alternative medicine heavy area. And I can think off the top of my head of at least 20 shamans that are within a 10-mile radius of where I live. And I think that's important for us to all know about, because those are people that might connect with you on a spiritual level, just on in your way of looking at the world and your ideas of the world. They can be great resources for you. One of the shamans around here, a woman I know, has monthly gatherings to discuss the work, to do drumming, to do intention ceremonies for instance, for the people and animals affected by the fires in California, to look at the solstice, just whatever happens to be happening at the time. And it's a profound experience to connect in those situations with other like-minded people, and really well worth seeking out in your community. And we have, across the western part of the United States, many, many gifted Native American practice shamans. And They are pretty abundant and very powerful healers, and I recommend seeing what's in your area because it can be really helpful for you and your pets. And for instance, I even had Tracy do a journey for the moose that died behind my house to help him cross because he was really suffering. He was starving and he wasn't drinking, and he had this brain disease from a certain kind of worm that they just lose basically their will to live. They don't know how to stay safe or eat or drink or run away from danger and all of that. So doing that journey with him really, I think, brought his life to a completion so that he was able to cross peacefully. So that's a quick look at shamanic work and how that might play a role in your animal when he's crossing the rainbow bridge, or your own life, or your loved ones' lives. We will be back tomorrow, Friday, for another episode of Conversations with the Corgi. I had a great experience with the new dog that I saw yesterday, and I also had a wonderful interview with Bernie Siegel for the radio show, Dr. Judy Morgan's Naturally Healthy Pets, on DreamVision7radio.com, and that will be in January. So we look forward to that, and today we're breaking out the fake Christmas tree for the first time after I do about a million other things. As usual, behind on the emails. Tristan, what do you have planned? He's getting to play with his dachshund pals. He loves Peanut. When he sees Peanut, he's going to be so happy. His whole body will wag. Thanks for joining us. We'll see you guys tomorrow. Have a great day.